Hello and welcome back to Auto Social UK. Thank you so much for tuning in again. In today's video I'm going to be showing you our brand new family car. So this is actually my mum's car. I would have left it as a surprise, but I'm sure the thumbnail and the title has completely given it away. But yes, my mum has brought a brand new T-Roc. This is her first car on a PCP, and in today's video I'm just going to explain what made her choose this car, or what made me help her choose this car, the whole process that she went through, what she was driving before, and yeah, I'll show you the T-Roc in a little bit more detail. But without further ado, here it is. So the main aim of this video is to go through my mum's customer journey, what made her decide on the T-Roc, what did she drive previously, why did she choose to change from a cash buyer to a PCP buyer, and different things like this, because there are probably going to be other people out there that are following a very similar path to her. So I'm hoping this will help somebody else out there make their decision on their next car. So let's start with what she was driving previously. So my mum owned outright a 15 plate white diesel Golf, and she absolutely loved this car. She's had it for sort of the past 2 or 3 years, but it was just getting at that age where it needed a cam belt change. It was getting a little bit older. It was getting more expensive services, more expensive MOTs, and she just thought it was time to change. She generally changes her cars every 3 years anyway, which is why, for me, being in my sales background, I said that she was the perfect PCP buyer. So of course we went through all of the ins and outs of PCP. I gave her all of the options, all of the information that she needed, and we kind of weighed up that for the last 10 or so years she's been owning these cars for around 3 years. She's always had to pay to MOT them, she's always had to pay to service them, but she's always been paying out for them. She never had the full cash all in one go. She usually had about half, and then she would finance or get a loan for the other half of the car. But she was always buying cars that were just out of warranty, because they were getting to that 3 years old, so she could get them for a little bit cheaper. So she was always paying monthly for a car anyway, but it was just to own it at the end. So we kind of weighed up the options of, if she went for a brand new car, what option she would have. So we decided to go for the T-Roc on finance. We had a budget of around £250 a month. I advised to friends and family to not put too much money down at the start. She could have put all of the money from the sale of Golf into the T-Roc, and then she could have paid a lower monthly payment. But because she does plan to upgrade this car in 3 years' time, she probably isn't going to buy it. That means that she didn't want to put too much money in, and she can keep the money from the sale of her Golf in her bank account, earn interest on it, and then she can use that for anything she wants to. If at the end of the T-Roc she decides that she wants to buy a car again, then she's still got the money from the savings from the Golf. So why the T-Roc? Well, this is probably very heavily influenced by myself, but I actually drove T-Rocs for around 7 months whilst I was with Volkswagen. I had 2 petrols, and I also drove a diesel for a little while as well, and I loved them. I thought they were such great cars. I really like the extra height, the extra size of them. If I was to buy a car personally for myself, I was also thinking of getting the T-Roc convertible, but she has of course stolen my colour. This is the colour that I wanted my T-Roc convertible in, so I've got to rethink that, and I'm going to have to go for a different colour. But yeah, I really rated these cars highly. I think they drive lovely, I think they look lovely, and they're also super practical as well. So it's definitely something that was heavily influenced by myself. A lot of people are thinking that they do want to go for an SUV for their next car. They're becoming super popular. It's just nice to sit that little bit higher and have that little bit of extra space. So when it come around to choosing a car, she knew that she loved Volkswagen, and yeah, she decided that the T-Roc was going to be her perfect next car. So next up, let's talk about the specification specification that they went for. So again, like I was saying, I mean, they would have absolutely loved the R-Line, but they wouldn't have been able to afford the R-Line, which is a shame. But the one that they eventually went for was the Design. So I did steer them away from the SE towards the Design. It's a slight difference in price, but I think for what you get and for what the car looks like, the Design makes it a lot more desirable. So this is in the Ravenna blue, and because it's the Design, that means that you also get the black roof and also the rear tinted windows. So I think from an aesthetic point of view, this really does make a difference to the looks of the car. So the other differences over the SE to the Design is also then on the interior. So the Design comes with mood lighting, which is pretty nice. They've got a little light under this part of the dash, and they've also got little lights in this part of the door card as well. And actually, when I first changed my cars at Volkswagen, I had a Design to start with, and then I had an SE. And one of the main things I realised was when I'd got in the SE and I drove at night, it was completely different. The SE was so dark, whereas because you've got that mood lighting in the Design, it really makes a nice amount of difference. It lights up the cabin and it looks a lot nicer. So in my opinion, that little bit of difference in price is really worth it for the Design. Next up, let's talk about engine options and what engine eventually my mum went for. So I know I previously said that she drove a 2-litre diesel Golf, and choosing an engine was probably the most difficult thing when it come to deciding what car we were going to go for. Ideally, they loved their 2-litre diesel Golf, which had 150 brake horsepower, and they would have liked to have stuck with that. The problem is that the diesel 2-litre T-Roc is quite expensive. Now, as a comparison, I know I said previously that we needed a monthly budget of around £250 a month. Now, when we spec'd up a 2-litre diesel T-Roc, we were looking at around £350 a month. So it was a lot more expensive, and that unfortunately wrote the 2-litre T-Roc off straight away. And then sticking with diesel, there's also a 1.6 115 brake horsepower engine. I didn't rate this engine at all. I drove it up to Manchester, I drove it around for a little while, and I really didn't like it. It was quite noisy, you had to really struggle to get through the gears, and it coped completely differently to the 1-litre petrol that I'd been driving. So that's what I had my main company cars in, was the 1-litre petrol, and then for a while I drove the 1.6 diesel. I really tried to deter them away from this. They were considering it, but they do sometimes listen to what I say, and I said to them that they really wouldn't like the 1.6 litre diesel. It just really would struggle compared to the Golf. So then we can move on to the petrol options, and this is where me and my stepdad came to a bit of a disagreement. So you have the 1-litre 115 brake horsepower petrol engine, and then you also have a 1.5 litre 150 brake horsepower engine. He wanted to go for the 150, which is completely understandable. I understand that going from the Golf, he didn't want to go down too much in power, but I think that the 1-litre petrol is a brilliant engine, and I didn't want them to write it off. Another reason that I was slightly worried about going for the bigger engine is that my mum does a lot of miles. So she's doing around 15,000 miles a year, and she does a lot of work in the community, and she takes her car. So she's always driving from place to place, doing short, what I would consider petrol miles. And what I was worried about is that from going from the 2-litre diesel Golf, which obviously had very good fuel economy, to the 1.5 litre petrol, that's going to really hurt her pocket. And obviously she's gone up slightly in her monthly payment to go for a new car, so she's already stretched that, and to then go up in fuel prices as well, that's going to be something that she was going to struggle with. So I said to them, I didn't want them to write off the 1 litre petrol car until they'd driven it, because I assured my stepdad that once he'd driven it, he would find that it actually is a very capable engine. So that's what they did. I booked him in for a test drive, an extended test drive, which is something that I'll put all the details of where we got it from in the description box, and they can accommodate for that. So if you feel like you need to spend a little bit more time with a car to make sure that it is right for you, which they needed to do, they wanted to do some motorway miles, they wanted to do some town driving, some country driving, and make sure that the 1 litre can cope, then you can go for an extended test drive. And that's exactly what they did, and I was right. They found that the 1 litre engine coped really well. Obviously it has its benefits of being cheaper to start with, so the price was cheaper to run, and they definitely thought that this was going to be their option going forward. And I can tell you that my mum has now been driving this for the last couple of weeks, and she's found that the car's coped really well. She says that first and second gear, it's slightly off, but then once you're past those first and second gears, it's a great car. She's found it completely effortless. Comparing it to the Golf, she says that fuel economy wise, it's almost on par. She's not sure if it's quite as good as the Golf, but then it's not expected to be. But she said she thinks that fuel economy is on par, and she really enjoys the effortless drive of the petrol. So I'm hoping that this can help somebody, because this is definitely something that a lot of people are thinking of doing, changing from those larger diesel cars to go down to a smaller petrol engine. But they're really happy with their decision, and she's glad that she went for the 1 litre. So as I mentioned, this is a standard car. It doesn't have any additional spec. In my opinion, the T-Roc is pretty well spec'd anyway. So if I unlock it, you've got folding mirrors as standard. You've also got front and rear parking sensors. On the inside of the car, you have got the colour touchscreen. This has Apple and Android CarPlay, but it doesn't have any sat-nav as standard. You've got dual zone climate control and adaptive cruise control. So in my opinion, that's all pretty well spec'd. Additional spec that you could go for, that perhaps I think would be nice, is you can get a winter pack, which gives you front heated seats and also heated washer jets. Obviously you could get a rear view camera if that's something you're interested in. That's definitely not something that really appealed to us. One of the things that my mum would have liked to have had, but isn't too worried, is the digital dashboard. So that is an extra on the T-Roc, which is a little bit of a shame with a lot of the new cars coming standard with the digital dashboards. But no, this one does come with just the plain dials. Other extras, you could get an electric tailgate, but the boot's pretty light. The whole car in general is pretty light, but yeah, there's not too much. As you can see, my mum can fit quite a lot in there, but yeah, just with the electric tailgate you do have to just manually pull it down, which can be a little bit of an effort, but I mean, first world problems, hey? And on top of all of that standard spec, the car does also get automatic lights and automatic wipers. You've got fog lights, you've got daytime running lights. So it is a really nice car, and I chatted to my mum this morning about how she's found the last couple of weeks with the car, and she's really pleased with her decision. She'd definitely recommend one of these cars, and it's a bit of a relief for me because it's the first car that they've decided on upon my opinion. But they're really happy, and I think they're kind of happy in their new PCP. Obviously they're not sure what they're going to do in 3 or 4 years time. They might want to buy it, they might want to sell it, they might want to come out of a PCP completely, but at the moment they're perfectly happy paying their monthly payments. As this is a Volkswagen, it does get 3 years warranty. They're thinking of changing on the third year anyway to make sure they're always in warranty. Obviously it won't need an MOT in the first 3 years, and 2 services are included. I think they paid £199 for 2 free services, or they're not free because you pay for them, but most of the time they'll throw it in. Notes for when purchasing one of these cars to remember is, and I can't believe this is so embarrassing because I worked for Volkswagen for nearly a year, SEs, designs, SELs do not come with carpet mats. Most of the time, if you ask your dealer very nicely or make it part of the deal, they will throw you in a set of carpet mats. Please Volkswagen, I need mine. But yeah, we didn't actually get carpet mats in this car, which is completely my fault, and I will of course make sure that I sort my mum out those. But the R-Line is the only one that comes standard with car mats, so do remember that when you're purchasing, to make sure that you either purchase a set or ask the dealer to throw them into your deal. I got this car from where I used to work, which is the Marriott Motor Group. I rate them really highly. They did me an amazing deal. I think when we went online and spec'd this car up on the Volkswagen website, and we run the finance deal with my mum's, she put in a £1,500 deposit, it was coming out at near £300 a month. So they managed to get off £50 a month for us, which is amazing. I think they took, in all, with all of the deposit contributions and different things like that, I think we got around £3,000 discount. So I'm really pleased with that, and I'll pop all the details in the description box. You'll just have to mention that you've seen my video, and I'm sure they'll match the offer for you. But yeah, thank you so much for Andrew at Volkswagen for sorting this out for my mum. I really hope this has helped somebody who's thinking of purchasing a T-Roc. If you've got any questions about ownership or long-term ownership, then pop all the questions in the description box and I'll be happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. Please give this a massive thumbs up, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Bye.